Hey folks, Dr. Gerstmar at Aspire Natural Health here. As you can see, we're actually getting a little bit of sunshine today in Seattle. Still clouds, so, but that's the Seattle sunshine. It was interesting. A new study came out just recently calling into question some of what we thought we knew, which is great. Of course, you feel a little disheartened, but anybody out there should be glad when we get new information, right? We want to come closer to the truth. And we were told in medical school that 50% of what we were learning was either incomplete or just incorrect, which you can take as very disheartening, but it is the reality. The trouble is we don't know which 50% is impartial or incorrect and which 50% is true. So it's a goal of mine every few years to be able to look back on the work that I was doing and sort of shake my head and go, dang, if only I knew then what I know now. And that's a sign that I keep pushing forward, trying to learn more and do better by my patients. But this particular article has to do with C-sections and vaginal births and gut bacteria. So, a little ways back, I put out a short video on something called vaginal seeding. And that is for babies who are born via a C-section. It's taking a piece of gauze or other absorbent material, putting it in the mom's vagina to soak up the fluids and the bacteria and things that are living in mom's vagina, and then giving that to baby. So rubbing it on the baby's skin, ears, eyes, nose, mouth, trying to get that inoculation. So let's back up for 1 second and understand why this makes sense. So, we know now that the gut bacteria, the bacteria we have that live in our gut, play a profound role in health and disease. Good bacteria, and we're still very much trying to figure out what exactly that means, have a lot to do with educating the immune system correctly so that we don't get things like allergies and autoimmune diseases, and just making sure that the body works right. Bad bacteria, again, we know some of that, but trying to work out a lot more, do the exact opposite. They cause a lot of health issues, concerns, immune dysfunctions, and other issues. And what we've seen overall is that babies who are born via C-section start out with very different looking gut bacteria, very abnormal looking gut bacteria compared to vaginally born babies. And the thought was, that we need to get as much, replicate as much as we can of that vaginal bacteria for baby to try and get baby off on the right start. Because after all, if we start with bad bacteria, it doesn't look good. And we know that the incidence of many diseases in childhood is just skyrocketing. Kids with autoimmune diseases, kids with allergies, kids with cancer, kids with lots of different health problems. And certainly not all of that is just about gut bacteria and vaginal birth and C-sections, but we want to do everything we can to try and make our kids as healthy as possible. So, a new study came out recently, we'll link to it right here, that showed that while the initial, what baby's gut bacteria looks like initially, tends to look quite different between vaginally born and C-section babies, that by 8 weeks of age, that difference seems to largely disappear. And that seems to be, as you can imagine, because baby begins being influenced by so much more. So whether mom's breastfeeding or feeding formula, the type of bacteria that baby's exposed to, are there pets in the house, what does the home look like, other people that baby's being exposed to, other situations, all of those things that affect us as grown-ups, of course, and modify our gut bacteria, go on to modify baby's bacteria as well, so that while we see the significant difference at birth, there we go. Fortunately, someone's having a bad day, so take a moment to be grateful for all of us who are not having the same kind of bad day. So while baby's gut bacteria looks very different at birth, it seems that by 8 weeks of age, most of that difference has disappeared. So is this idea of vaginal seeding really necessary? Are we putting baby at any risk? I always start by going back to the baseline and trying to understand quote-unquote natural conditions, okay? I know there's a lot of debate around that word natural, but we know as human beings up until surgery, so for the most part, really only the last couple hundred years, or maybe you can argue more than that, all babies were born vaginally, right? If it didn't work out, really bad stuff happened, but there really wasn't a choice. So we know, going back hundreds of thousands of years, all human beings were born vaginally or not born at all. Going back farther than that, we know our primate ancestors for millions of years only gave birth vaginally, and even farther than that, our mammal ancestors, again, always gave birth vaginally. So is it absolutely necessary to give birth vaginally? Again, I don't know. This new study suggests that it may not have such a bad impact on the gut flora as we thought. But our baseline condition for millions of years has been that babies of all mammals are born vaginally. And so when we start to do something different, it doesn't, of course, mean that it's bad, but I think we need to be wary. Often we jump in as humans, understanding one or two things, make all these big changes, and then realize in hindsight, like, whoops, we really didn't understand that situation, and there's a lot of unintended consequences. So for me, while this study is very interesting, and it suggests that we may not have to feel as much guilt or concern or put as much emphasis on whether a person was born vaginally or via C-section, I still think it makes sense to mimic what nature is doing unless it can be definitively proven that there's no difference. So if it were my child, or in the future my grandchildren, or anyone else that I was personally looking after, and for whatever reason a C-section was necessary, at this point I still very much would encourage vaginal seeding. Now, it may turn out not to be that big of a deal, but again, until it is, I recommend it. The risk is extremely low unless mom has some significant dysbiosis or trouble in her guts or vaginal canal, in which case we may almost want to skip it and do something differently. But for the most part, I'm still in favor of it. So listen, new studies are great. Being proven wrong doesn't feel good, but is important. So any health practitioner out there who isn't keeping up with changes in what's going on, isn't modifying and adjusting their views as new evidence is going on, again, look, the basics, food and sleep and movement and all of those things aren't going to change. I mean, as human beings, we need to eat good quality food, mostly whole food. We need to get regular movement. We need to get enough sleep at night. Those things aren't going to change. But when it comes to specific tools and techniques and therapies and understandings of things, those are going to change. We are blessed to live in a time when we have more information than ever before. And if your practitioner is not staying up to date on their education, is not changing their views and changing their treatments as things evolve, it's time to seek out a new practitioner. All right, folks, at Aspire Natural Health, we are experts at treating gut dysfunctions, autoimmune diseases, and other hard-to-treat cases. If that's you or someone you love, please contact us. We can set up a complimentary phone call where we can find out if we can help you, and you're a good match with us, and it makes sense to move forward. All right, folks, until next time, take care.